So today's Cardinal lesson, long-term care insurance by the numbers. So what we're talking about is giving you some statistics about long-term care. And I learned a long time ago that when I was more of a salesman than I was a financial planner, that statistics or the odds of using long-term care don't cause people to buy long-term care insurance. People buy long-term care insurance because they love their family and they love their children and they love their husband and wife, who are really the ones that bear the brunt of a long-term care crisis. So we're going to be going over 8 specific numbers today that I found very interesting and enough to do a video on them. I want to bring Tom on, and he's really going to talk about why we're doing this video today.
Yeah, we're doing this video because we want to show you how to protect your husband, your wife, your loved ones, your adult children from a crisis. Because this is the crisis when this happens. And so these statistics aren't something that are going to convince you that you need to plan for it. But when we already are there, we know we need to plan for it. We're going to use these statistics to help us create the plan, help us design a policy that makes sense for you. So I want to get into the show notes. You can find these below our video and the link. They're also on our website under the Learning Center. I think they're very useful. We have the board, and a lot of people print it out, take notes on it, that type of things. Because if you're watching on your phone, it's kind of small. We have this article that Hans was referring to that really where we pulled the statistics from. There's more details in here. So if you want to learn more about it, go look there, print it out. It's in the show notes. But we've summarized it on the board. So we'll sort of get back to the board. And we're just going to go kind of line by line and walk through sort of these interesting numbers that we gleaned from this article.
Yeah, and the article's from the CLTC Digest, which is certification in long-term care, of which Tom and I both have that professional designation, among others. And it's an article that I just found the numbers in there and the facts behind this to be quite useful. So let's get off with the first one. Is that most of this stuff comes from long-term care insurance claims data. Historically, women use the stuff or have twice the claims that men do. And then once women use it, it's a longer claim. So that's why women pay more for long-term care insurance than men do. Okay. And a lot of times we sell this on couples and it's all blended together so that people really don't see those differences. When you write them on a single person, they again don't see the differences because they're either male or female and they're not seeing the counterpart. But women pay more than men do for long-term care insurance. Second point, 48% of the claims are less than a year. So almost half, very close to half of the claims, when you look at all the claims over a number of years, half of them are done in a year. And people either get better and recover and get off of care, or go back home if they're in a facility, or they pass away. I mean, and so half the claims are done in a year. And that tells us that if we perhaps look at short-term care insurance, we got a 50% chance of covering the whole thing. So the average need. So, now we're going to look at, for women, 3.7 years of care and 2.2 years for men. So that gives us a little bit of information about how long of a policy, but you've got to remember half the data or half the stays for long-term care are on the other side of this number. So it could be several years beyond that. Number 4, long-term care claims that are greater than a year. So once a claim reaches a year, it makes it out of the 50%. Now they average 3.9 years. So that's about 4 years, but that's an average. Again, there's a whole bunch of time on the other side of the average. Okay, and I just want Tom to jump in if you've got any comments that you want to make on what these numbers mean to you.
One thing that I'll just point out, and you're sort of alluding to this, is an average is just that. It's an average. You personally are not an average. You're an individual person, and we don't know how long each individual person is going to need care. If we look at all of our clients, yeah, we can probably get somewhere similar to these averages. But that doesn't mean you individually are going to fit nicely into this number. So just take that in context when we're going over these numbers.
Sure. And so number 5, this one I found really interesting because it's the extreme out there that you really 15% chance that a long-term care claim will last more than 5 years. So you start thinking about that, and I've written a lot of 4-year and 5-year policies, really more 4-year and even 3-year, and there's a 15% chance that the claim is going to last longer than 5 years. What that speaks to me is get lifetime benefits if you can afford them and if you're able to obtain them. Number 6, there's a 2% chance that a long-term care claim will last 10 years or more. Okay, 10 years is a long time, and I want to remind you this is historical data. And but there are people, a lot of them with cognitive impairments, that just last 20 years, 15 years needing care. And so again, this speaks to lifetime, and 2% is still significant when you're writing insurance. Number 7, we're really talking about dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive impairment. It's the number one reason for long-term care claims on people 65 and over. So, you think about that 25 years ago, it wasn't anywhere near the number one reason because, I'm just 25, 30 years, I'm throwing anecdotal numbers and from my experience at you, but uh, a number of people didn't live long enough to ever get the cognitive impairment. And in the years since then, people get their health problems repaired and they last, and then they live long enough, a good percentage of them get a cognitive impairment. And what we're looking at with long-term care insurance and what you're looking at as the insured is if this happens to you, you could live a long time needing care, and you want to be insured for that. Again, it speaks to lifetime coverage. And on average, Alzheimer's people live 4 to 8 years from diagnosis, on average, and some live as long as 20 years with Alzheimer's. So I want to bring Tom back on, and I want to hear some comments from Tom about these numbers in general and how we're going to use them in our practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think these numbers are really helpful for Hans and myself to understand sort of the data behind all this. But this is not the reason people buy long term care insurance. It's not the reason you're going to buy long term care insurance if you do it. You really do this, you plan for this risk because you love your spouse, your kids, because they are the ones who bear the burden on this. We have other videos where we've talked about sort of my personal experience with this. Hans has had experience with this with his family members. I mean, the people who line up who really want insurance is because they've experienced the need for it. Their parents have gone through it and they say, I don't want to put my kids through this. We need to plan for it. So the numbers are helpful, really more for us to know sort of how to design the policy. But for you, really the thing here is you just want to plan. So there's a plan in place that if this crisis happens, there's money because the money is the last thing you want to be thinking about or your family wants to be thinking about when you're going through this. I mean, you really just want to be focused on them, loving on them, taking care of them. And if you have this policy to fund that care, it just makes it a lot smoother transition into needing this type of care.
Okay, so when we're writing financial plans, we use these 7 boxes that are on the outside of the board just to check off, and we go over all of these things when we do a financial plan for you. And what we're going to talk about is which ones have we touched on today? Well, obviously, long-term care, which is number 3, and it's a big priority when we do financial planning. We're going to make people real aware of what the risk is and the threat to their future, their retirement, and their finances. Uh, we haven't really talked about Medicare, but I just want to make a point. Medicare doesn't do much for long-term care, especially over years of long-term care. It may pay a little bit in the beginning. We talk about estate planning. This really is a big piece of estate planning. Taxes, I just want to emphasize that there's tax benefits baked into the purchase of long-term care insurance. And then furthermore, one of the biggest tax benefits is the fact that the benefit payments or the reimbursement for long-term care expenses are come to you tax-free. So the purchase of one of these is very tax smart.
From the tax standpoint, I want to just emphasize that point is we have people who have plenty of money and they come to us and telling us they want to self-insure, which objectively they probably have the money, they could do so. What they forget though is that, if the money's in say a IRA or a brokerage account, they're going to have to pay taxes to sell those funds to fund that care. And so you need to account for that. And where with the long-term care policy, if you have that in place, every dollar coming out of that is tax-free. So any more that generally you're going to get more out of a long-term care policy than you put in. All of that growth essentially in there would be tax-free.
Okay. Tom and I are licensed in all 50 states in the District of Columbia. So we serve people nationwide. If you got a question about this kind of stuff, you want to consult with us, just give us a call or email us and we'll make that happen. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.